Hello and welcome to another Parousia Podcast. I'm Shavel Raish, your host, and I'm excited about our guest from the United States today. A former veteran, 10 years in the Army, also a fallen away Catholic, but a revert, come back and is on fire for the Lord, and he's devoted to men's ministry. We're going to get to know him. His name is Marek Rudak. Let me say that. His name is Marek Rudak, and he joins me live now. Hello, Marek. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Charbel. It's, I love your accent. It's just amazing. Australia is such a beautiful country. One of these, I hope I can make it over there. But I definitely want to congratulate you on the rolling R's. It's quite a challenge for English speakers.
That's right. Yes, that's right. What is the background, cultural background? So that name, it's not a typical American name. Where is your cultural?
Sure. So I was born in Poland. I lived there for the first 14 years of my life, and Marek is basically Polish Mark. So it's like a Mark with an extra E. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Oh, fantastic. You have a fascinating story, Marek, and you also are the author of the book, and I can see it there, The Love-Driven Man. We're going to talk a bit about that towards the end of the show. But before we get that, I'd love to explore your faith journey, your upbringing. I understand you weren't very devout in your faith growing up, but you are on fire now as an adult. Can we go back to the beginning, a little bit about who you are, obviously raised in Poland, a bit about your upbringing and faith journey?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously there's much that can be said over here. So if I start rambling, please stop me. But long story short, I grew up in communist Poland, very, very devout. Everybody I knew was Catholic. And so I definitely had a lot of intellectual knowledge. I had to take religion classes, and so I kind of knew the Stations of the Cross, the Ten Commandments, like a lot of intellectual knowledge. But the emotional connection with the faith was very challenging for me. For me, it's just it's like something that we did, but nobody like ever demonstrated life as a Catholic outside of the church. In other words, the only time we ever talked about what happened in church is typically when my grandma was gossiping at somebody who did something wrong or didn't wear something properly. We never like really discussed what happened to church. I mean, we went to the church, we were dressed, we properly behaved, but outside of that, we just didn't do it. And then what another kind of curveball that prevented me from understanding my identity as a son of God was my very abusive grandfather. So long story short is my dad, my parents didn't get divorced, but basically my dad didn't live with us. I guess what happened is like he moved in with my grandparents. So it was my grandfather, my grandma, me, my mom, and then our father moved in. But this happened before, I kind of, became conscious or whatnot. He got kicked out by my grandfather, and so he didn't live with us. So it was a weird situation because they weren't divorced, but my dad wasn't there. And so, especially back, these days, unfortunately, it's pretty common that kids don't grow up with their fathers. But me, I was like the only kid I knew that didn't have a father. And so the problem is that because my grandfather was so abusive, so verbally abusive, it destroyed my confidence. So it was very hard for me to picture a loving God because, we looked very good in the church, but then my grandfather was very abusive. And so to me, that really destroyed my confidence. And, I think it's very fair to say that we typically associate our family bringing to the image of God. And so because my grandfather was abusive, to me, church was just something that you did to get approval, but it's not something that you actually lived out in your real life.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for that background, because I imagine how real that is for many Catholics out there. We become cultural Catholics, and on the outside, it sort of look good for the world, but what's going on is quite empty, or we're not at peace with ourselves. You did sort of mention communist Poland. So yeah, can you just give people a background, because I don't know if many people understand. It was quite different, but we're going back in the 70s and 80s. What it was like there in Poland under communist regime.
Sure. So I lived in the tail end. So kind of the worst communist was during the Stalin era. I mean, back then, it's just like it's scary. Like for example, the KGB actually had quota how many people they had to kill every single day. it just blows your mind. Like the more you read about Stalin, how they had regular purges, even top leaders just get shut up. So that was like kind of the roughest communism. So I was born towards the tail end. So really what I experienced was more of the shortages. So like, for example, with me, I was never hungry, but like whenever you wanted some kind of like something extra, like sugar or maybe like coffee, you have to stand in line, because in communism everybody's equal, right? So everybody has money, but the problem is that because everybody has access to it, the supply becomes the problem. And so, for example, I remember with my standing in line with my grandma to, for example, I don't know if it was sugar or just kind of like the extra things, or like maybe chicken, so something more extra, So again, we weren't starving, but anytime you wanted some variety, you had to wait in line. So that was kind of like the main thing. And it was just like everything was basic, like, for example, even I'll give you a perfect example. Like nowadays, we're all tired of TV ads, right? I mean, it's like, who wants to watch another commercial? But back in my days, like commercials were just propaganda. Was just like some guy dressed like he's ready to go to war, and it's like it was just very bland and very boring. And so, for example, when the wall fell, and all of a sudden we started seeing the Western TV programming, to us, commercials like, oh, this is awesome. People are smiling. They're like brushing their teeth or using a computer. And so for the obviously it wore off, but for the first couple of years, people were more interested in watching commercials than actual programming.
Yeah, interesting. I can't help think of our Pope at the time, Saint John Paul II.
Mm-hmm.
I know when he went back to Poland, it was a huge issue. They didn't want him to go there, and they knew it would cause a stir. And he did. He went there, and people. He gave the Polish a lot of hope to believe in God and be free. And I remember, was it they were chanting his name, and they were just in unison. It was phenomenal, the scenes on TV, and sure enough, I think he had a second visit, and then was soon after that the wall came down towards the late 80s. Tell us, do you remember him visiting the country, or do you have friends, or what?
Yes, so I actually was one of his events, and again, back then to me, like Catholicism was like,
Yeah.
But it's like basically like my mom and my grandma dragged me to see him at some place in Poland. I'm not sure when, but to me it was actually kind of cool because you got to do a trip. But and that's like the most people I've ever seen in one place up until that point in my life. And then later on in the early 90s, we actually did this pilgrimage, which is I don't know how we've done it, but basically like our small church basically got this like a bus, and it's like kind of like a communist bus. Like it's very like bad shape, no air conditioning, no bathrooms, like everybody's stuffed together. Basically, we were poor, so like we basically all the food we would take with us, and we would drive from Poland all the way to Rome. And
Wow.
and actually I have a picture like when you can see like a corner of my face with the Pope. So Pope was definitely a very big figure. For me, it was more kind of like a celebrity.
Yes.
But I did have a few touch points that I wasn't really appreciative of. But now looking backwards, I'm glad that my mom and my grandma did their best to get me exposed to it.
Yes, I mean, who knows? We're going to learn now in your story. It's amazing. We come across saints, and you met a saint, and you had a special figure there that planted a seed that you didn't realize till later. But let's talk about your upbringing now. After that, tell us, like as teenage years,
Sure.
What was life like?
Sure.
Then you said you sort of you weren't taking your faith that seriously.
Sure.
It wasn't having an
Yes.
impact. Tell us more.
Yeah, so like the thing about me is like I was always pretty good in school. So like I always get good grades, like I was always kind of the teacher's pet because I memorized things very well. And so the kind of the next thing that really shook me up is when I was 10, my dad passed away. And that was unexpected. Like my dad, he went to the hospitals before, but I'll never forget. In fact, I'll never forget that when my grandmother told me that he passed away, because she basically told me, it's like, hey, get dressed, you're gonna go see your dad, which I was used to because he was in hospital before. And then out of nowhere she said, your dad is dead. And like it's never happened to me. Like I lost strength in my legs and I literally just like collapsed on the floor. And so that was very hard. And and so so my dad passed when I was 10, and then when I was 13, my mom remarried and she moved to the United States. And then when I was 14, I joined her and I moved to United States, Alameda, California, where I was super blessed to go to a Catholic high school. I mean, it was a huge blessing because, Catholic high schools, you have to pay extra. But back then, they were very affordable. And so in like for the first 2 years, they gave us they gave me a scholarship in the last 2 years because my stepfather did bingo. It was actually free. We didn't have to pay anything for it. And so again, I was really exposed to good education. A lot of good seeds were planted to me, but to me, the Catholicism aspect is like, okay, well, it's a Catholic high school. I gotta have a semester of religion every semester. So I just need to memorize what I need to know to get an A test, so I get a good average, good GPA, so that way I can get a good college. Because the thing that was really hard for me is because when I moved to the United States, I'll never forget that day either. My mom picked me up at San Francisco airport. I look at her and she's got a big belly. She's 7 months pregnant. Nobody told me about that. I mean, obviously, it's pretty obvious. You get married, you have kids, but at the time I was 14. What did I know? And so like that, my stepfather was okay with me, but kind of the message that I got from that encounter on is that I'm kind of like the fifth wheel in the family. Like my siblings, they got their dad and their mom, and it's like, to me, I was kind of like an extra. And so like, kind of like my grandfather showed my confidence. Then I moved to the United States where I see my siblings have this perfect American family that I always wanted. And so I figured like the only way I can make it or prove my worth is by getting good grades and getting to a good school.
Wow, how real is that to many who feel like that? Like you said, the fifth wheel. We are in a situation today where that is more common than ever. But it does not mean you're not loved, and does not mean that you're not accepted. But it certainly is in your mind. Does make it be tough on you. So what impact did that have on you? I guess your identity, your outlook on life. Did that influence then actions in your life? Beyond that, tell us a bit more.
Yeah, big time. I mean, like, obviously, like, looking back, I would have still went to West Point. I would have done it all over again. But if I was to be honest with you, the main reason I went to West Point is because I thought that, hey, you see these like movies with these military leaders, tough, everybody respects them. I thought to myself, man, if I go to West Point and I'm not just like these guys on TV, then I finally have the respect. I finally show my worth, because I didn't have the worth on the inside, so I saw it on the outside. And so again, I would have done the same thing over again, but back then my objectives were more selfish for sure. And so that really steered me towards the military, because military is a wonderful organization, but the thing about the military, for example, like at West Point, you get a good grade, you get a badge, later on when you graduate, you go to Ranger School, you get another tab, you go to war, you get a badge, you get, so it's like, I mean, again, it's a good thing. I don't criticize it, but especially if you're hungry for validation, like military is perfect place, because there's a lot of tangible things you can put in your uniform to feel validated.
Yeah, very interesting. So tell us about that life in the military. So you spent 10 years. So you've graduated from high school. You went straight into the military?
So the way it works is I went to West Point, which is a military academy. And so basically the way West Point is, it's, here in the United States, I'm not sure how it is in Australia, if you guys kind of follow the European model, but for us, it's like, you have high school and you typically have bachelor's degrees for 4 years. And then later on you get graduate school if you want to. Because for example, in Poland, in Europe, is you typically do 5 years and it's combined master's degree. But in the United States, you do 4 years. So that's kind of the standard bachelor's. And then, so West Point is essentially like a college. The main difference is that you have to take military classes. You take a lot of physical fitness classes, like for example, boxing. That's like another thing I'll never forget. It's like, and like the way you do boxing over there, it's like real boxing. Like you learn the skills, but the way you actually get a grade, you have to like do the graded bows. And like, wow. And it's like you actually go at it. And like, for example, with me, like you gotta do 4. The first 2 I did very well. And I thought to myself, man, I should have been a boxer, And then my third one, man, I was fighting this guy. This guy was so fast. Like I'm like there, and all of a sudden, I don't even know where it came from. and literally, like, like you see in the cartoons, the stars, you kind of
Yeah.
this, it's like, I was like, man, that's where it comes from. So you really, so it's basically like the college is the military training, and then the physical training. Basically what happens is when you graduate, then your obligation to do is do 5 years on active duty. With me, I ended up doing 6 years because I got stop loss for Afghanistan. Because what happens is when your units get put on a mission, you can't, they lock everybody down. But yeah, so over there, I went to West Point. By the way, over there, I had this wonderful priest, I'll never forget his name. It's Father Gordy, and it's funny because at the time I was very like focused on the grades, but man, that guy was just so kind. There's just like such a loving presence that I just could not ignore it. And so even though like at West Point you sleep deprived, I mean, it's kind of, they call it the Thayer system, which is basically like they overload you on purpose just to kind of focus you to prioritize and give you as much pressure as they can without putting you to combat. So even with all of that, I would still go to mass, not necessarily for mass itself, and I hate to say it, but really because I saw this guy and he was like so calm and so joyful and so peaceful. And so that was like yet another example. Like, even though I didn't really get it, or I didn't really much care for it, I was definitely drawn to the people who were living out the life. And, those are the people, it took another 10 years for the seeds to start growing, but these people definitely planted some quality seeds inside of my heart.
Well, yeah, so true, isn't it? How many of us, we come across people in our lives and we seldom realize that's God putting them in our lives, and they're right under our nose all this time. But that's great. You can look back and you can see these points.
Yeah.
Now, so then military life. I understand you did get married. Were you in the army at the time, or you
Sure.
left? Tell us about.
Yeah, so like with me, one thing you learn is I'm a slow learner. I make a lot of mistakes, to learn. So that the kind of the next shocking thing that happened to me is that my mom passed away from cancer.
Sorry.
And by the time I got to the hospital, she was unconscious. And so I never kind of got the closure with her, because it's really sad, because it's like my mom like really cared for me, but because we kind of grew up in this abusive household, we never like learned how to communicate emotions to each other. So like she always like cared for me deeply, but like I never like was able to show my appreciation so we never really had this kind of like an honest, heartfelt conversation, even though I know she really cared for me, and obviously she sacrificed for me a lot. And so that really shook me up. And then the second thing that shook me up is that I got put on orders. So I went to Iraq, but I got put on orders for Iraq for 15 months. To Afghanistan for 15 months. It was back at the peak, where there was shortage of people. And long story short, I met this woman that kind of going back to that theme of like I was like looking for validation. She was like really validating me,
Mm-hmm.
and basically what happened is I didn't know her for long. I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't have any good role models. So I thought, well, she loves me. She makes me feel good. It's the right time. I'm about to go to Afghanistan. So it would be kind of good thing to have somebody in my life, because at that time, my dad was passed away. My mom, we passed away. So I had no parents. With my siblings, I didn't have a good relationship with them, but they were kind of young too. And so long story short, I mean, I did it for all the wrong reasons, and I just didn't know what I didn't know. And it felt like the right thing to do, but it just, I rushed into failure without knowing it until later on.
And that did that last long? I know that in the end, how long were you with her?
Sure. So we got married right before I went to Afghanistan. So like we had 4 years married, and then because she was Polish, in Poland it's very important to have a Catholic wedding, and that was me back then. I was like, man, Catholic wedding, like, come on, it's like, what's the point of wasting money? That was my thinking. But her mom was like, man, like, how can you guys are married without a Catholic wedding? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then the sad thing is like my ex-wife did the marriage prep classes. I didn't even do them, and she got that, she got it forged that we did them together. So it was like a total rush job just to kind of keep the parents happy. And so what happened is that even though we were married for the 4 years, a year, and we're in 50 months of that I was in Afghanistan. Then later, by that time I left the service. I got a job with ExxonMobil. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing is Charbel, is that I just wasn't a good communicator. And, by that time, things were breaking down. And you know how it is, you watch TV, you see like couples having conflict, you kind of see
Hmm.
this kind of powerless dad. And I just felt like, oh, so this is what true marriage is. And so another mistake that I've made, I kind of defaulted to what I know. And so like what I do know is I love like working on the frontiers. So I volunteered for an assignment in Nigeria, where I did rotational assignments, where I spent a month on the vessel offshore of Niger Delta, and I had a month off. So to me, and the sad thing is, I actually looked forward to being offshore, because there I was with men, I was working, like it's something that I knew, and going back home, which is supposed to be restful, was stressful for me. But the thing that really killed our marriage is that it's like another day I'll never forget. My ex-wife was cheating on me with her boss, and it
Oh,
just crushed me, because I knew our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought that whatever it is, I could always trust her. And out of all the things that our marriage was, I thought that this would never happen. And so like literally, like the moment I found out, I mean, it's like time stopped. It's like a bomb went off. I was just like, all I kept saying was like, Jesus Christ, Jesus, because to me it just wouldn't compute. Like this
mm,
cannot be happening, and so but even then I was still open to reconciliation. But long story short is, that's it's another that I won't forget. I go back from work, look into my house after work. I noticed that half of the furniture is missing, and then later on I found out she moved in with that guy. And so that was basically the end of the end of our marriage. And then later on I did the annulment process, but that was kind of the final nail in the coffin.
yeah. Wow. So that would have, you've lost your two parents. Now your
Mhm.
wife. You're on your own. I mean, I'm just thinking. You feel like, are you at the life on at the bottom of the
Oh
barrel
yeah,
right
and I,
now?
I was I
What
was
was it like?
suicidal. I was suicidal. I mean,
Wow.
it's the one
Yeah.
the
Tell us your mental state with all
oh
that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was horrible. Like I could not sleep. I was like always like I remember back then I had this off I worked at a contractor's office. It was like a 40-minute drive, and to
Mm,
this day, praise the Lord, I don't know how it happened, because literally for like days at a time I wouldn't sleep. I didn't get into an accident. I was like always on this high adrenaline. The one thing that saved me is that my mom had a very good friend, and she kind of became my kind of mom by proxy. And
mhm.
she was working real estate. She did these basically loans, and it's something that she could do from wherever. And she came over and lived with me for 3 weeks, in that half house, with the half the furniture empty. It's like every time I came back, it was just like a reminder, how long it was. So she was there with me, and that very likely saved my life. Having somebody there with me for those 3 weeks
Yeah.
was super helpful. And that was the lowest of my low. And so, and that's kind of but as hard as it was exactly what I needed to wake up. And that was, the slow start of coming back to God.
Yeah, that's yeah. This is the point I've been waiting for. How do we get you? Now you are on fire now for the Lord. Tell us now, this climb back up. How did you rediscover your faith, or learn? How
Sure.
what happened there? Tell us this process.
So it definitely wasn't overnight. I wish I could, tell you that it was an overnight
Wasn't a
conversion.
St. Paul moment, struck by
Yeah,
lightning?
yeah. Well, and in a way, I kind of feel good saying that, because I remember watching like a lot of testimonies. In fact, the other day, yesterday, I was watching Father Calloway's testimony. Very,
Oh
very
yeah,
good testimony. And then he said like there was this like one specific moment in a mass. I
mm,
think it was worship, and then he like had a voice of Mary, and it was like this instant thing, which is great. But that's not always the case. So I'm just hoping that for people who are listening, if that's hasn't happened to you, the kind of the slow compound interest, coming back to the faith is still a viable option. So for me, it was definitely very slow. Like one thing that kind of helped me is I got another assignment in Angola. So I lived in Angola for over a year. So that was helpful, because I spent a lot of offshore. I had a drinking problem. So the good thing about being offshore, you can't drink. So that focused me on work, prevented me from drinking. And then I started reading. I started reading, and it wasn't always the kind of the Catholic books. It was things like Dostoevsky. I did some philosophy reading, but I also did some Catholic reading. And I was searching, because I just felt like like up until then, I kind of knew what my next step was. For example, you go to college, you get a job, For example, I was in the military, so you get a corporate job. In the corporate job, you kind of you get married, so but like with that divorce, everything got broken down. So I was really confused on what I should do. And so I was really searching to kind of figure out. I was like, hey, now that this happened, I was looking for answers to make sense of it. And so Catholicism wasn't that way, but it became one of the ways. And over time, I just realized that, hey, this is what makes the most sense for me.
Was there a particular book you remember?
Sure. So there's a number of books I read. I looked at secular books like Dostoevsky, even some New Age books. But the one that really touched my heart the most is Arise from Darkness by Benedict. And I know you can pronounce his last name better than I can.
Father Benedict Rochelle.
Yes, excellent book. I mean, in fact, I bought it a physical copy, and I actually downloaded it on Kindle because it just really, it's exactly what I need to hear at the time.
Wow, he's a holy man. May he rest in peace. I remember he passed away. I was in the States, I was in an airport. He is a Franciscan friar, and he passed away on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. It was just amazing. He had a huge impact on the Catholic Church. So, wow, to read that book. That's interesting. Tell us then, now you did say did you read a New Age book there as well? Did I pick up on that?
Oh yeah, like because I was calling, for example, I read the Seed of Soul, the New Age stuff, and it's kind of funny because and we can actually I'm a certified coach, and actually the certification I did was by New Age,
Oh wow!
And at the time, and man, Sharp, I
you
was
really
like
were searching for all sorts of things. You were
yeah.
You were dabbling in a lot of things at the time.
Yeah, and I was like literally this close to flipping over to the kind of the light, if you will. But it's and actually write about it in the book, the kind of and because I know we don't have much time, but I was drinking the Kool-Aid because you know how it is. You see Oprah do it, you see Tony Robbins, all these people are saying it, and I think that even some of the Catholic speakers, if you listen to them, they're kind of influenced by that prosperity thing. But the thing that kind of really was like kind of the that helped me get out of it is, I'll never forget this one conversation I had with this one lady. She's like, yeah, this is good. But the problem is that all this New Age stuff puts all the pressure on you, right? Because if it's up to you to visualize it, it's up to you to manifest it. So if you're not happy, it's all your fault because you're not manifesting enough, you're not visualizing, you're not forming your illusion, the way you're supposed to. And so and she was like really stressed out because it's like she basically puts all the responsibility on you. And so to me, like from my life experiences, I've noticed that when I lean on God, obviously the answers don't come as quick as I typically like, but when they do, man, it's worth it. It's like all these years of pain, and obviously I've endured a lot of pain. It's like, praise God, because this is what I needed, and had I not went through it, I would not have been able to appreciate it.
Yeah, wow. So how can you tell us, now you did say it's a long journey. Can you sort of remember when you got to the point where I'm a Catholic, I love my faith, like how many years are we talking in this whole discovery?
So it was very gradual. So like the divorce happened in 2010. That was my lowest low. And I slowly started going back, for example, I started praying rosary, tried to do it daily, but it was kind of on and off. When I could, I went to mass, but it was kind of like the big milestone. I'm trying to think about like what are the kind of the main milestones. So the first one was like praying the rosary daily. I think that one was a big milestone.
Interesting you knew to go back to that, the rosary.
What's that?
Interesting you knew that to go back to the rosary.
It's funny because like I grew, well, it's funny, it's interesting because I remember growing up, like I remember seeing my great grandma in the corner praying the rosary and doing, while hiccuping, like, well, sometimes falling asleep. I thought, what is she doing? But like literally like as soon as I found out that my ex-wife cheated on me, after I kind of came out of that church, like one of the first things I did was pray the rosary, So it's kind of fascinating how like these seeds, a lot of times feels like it's a waste of time, but you just don't know the day or the hour when they start blossoming. And so that was like the first thing, like when I kind of brought me to rosary, and and that was a regular practice. I'm trying to think, like, and another big step for me was opening up to people, because because I think it's especially hard for us men, and I see it all the time with the men I coach. It's like, because we never had like father figures who like open up, were vulnerable. We think that it's not manly. But like what I've noticed is that when I open up, that's how you create deep connections. And for example, like, one of the main things that happened along my journey was, obviously I met my wife, Jessie, which is a super blessing. But one of the reasons we were able to make that connection, because we met at a Catholic retreat. And, I'll never forget, to this day, she like opened up about her story. And I remember like my old self would have been, man, she's got some issues. But like my new self, because I'm so used to like talking about my story, it's like, man, this woman is real. I can have an honest conversation with her. And so that was like another big thing. And then another big thing, and I'm just kind of making these up on the spot, so I'll apologize if it doesn't make sense, is letting go of sin. Letting go of sin, because I did pornography. I did for a while after I got back to the United States. I did online dating, which led to a lot of premarital sex. And so to me, like actually walking the talk, that was the huge thing. And I think that for me, and I think it's true for an average man too, is that walking the talk, and when it comes to theology of the body, that's kind of a big transition, and a big test of like, do you actually mean what you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's real. That's right. And sin, we can be bondage to sin and born slave to sin. But interesting how you met your wife on a retreat, on a Catholic retreat that you knew to go to. So by the time did you get married? I mean, what happened there? Tell us how that relationship blossomed.
Sure.
From the retreat, because she is a devout Catholic herself, and I think that helped both your faith journeys, right?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just kind of mindful of time, so we don't. I don't talk too much, but yeah. So like when I met her, the interesting thing is like when I went to this retreat, that the title of the retreat was called something about transitions, and at the time, I was with ExxonMobil, but I just knew that, even though it was a great job, it's kind of goes back to that analogy from Plato. Like once you see the light, you cannot look at the darkness the same way. So like once I started seeing the light, not that corporate America is bad, but I just knew that this wasn't it. And so, and that's the reason why I went to this retreat, to kind of figure out like, well, what's the next step? And so the kind of the fascinating thing is that I was in the same small group with my now wife. Now, just to kind of give you some background, for about 5 or 6 years, I did a lot of online dating, and my typical my engineering mind was like, hey, the best thing to do is throw as many things on the wall, see what sticks. So that's why I wasn't on one dating website. I was on 5 dating websites, because I felt like, the more the merrier. But what happened is, and obviously I can talk a lot about it, but there was a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disappointment, and a lot of recognition that, hey, if I'm Catholic, then would I be doing this? So I felt that God was telling me to delete all of the online profiles and trust Him, to lead me to whatever's next. And so, and it was hard. It was hard, travel, because you know how it is. It's kind of like Facebook. These things are designed to get you addicted. You get a wink here, you get an icebreaker here, and all the pictures on these websites are good. So it really strokes your ego. So it was very hard for me to delete these things. And so by that time, I was about 1 year free of any kind of dating. And by that time, I kind of had this mindset of, hey, I'm doing this Catholic thing. And I told myself that, me following through on these teachings will result in me being single, because I just didn't see anybody who was doing the same thing. And I thought that, that was kind of the tax of doing the thing. So in my mind, I assumed that I'll be single for the rest of my life. And so like when I met Jessie, I was very hesitant, because I was in relationships before where it seemed like, it was, we're going to do the Catholic thing. But, one thing led to another. It's like, oops, how did this happen? And obviously I don't want to be too graphical, but, and so like with Jessie, I was like, well, it appears good, but I just been burned before. And, I'm pretty committed to leaving corporate America. So like, I don't know if she should be interested in somebody like me, who's a dreamer, who wants to quit his job. And, Jessie's she's a corporate attorney. And so I was like, man, I know how to get rid of her, or not get rid of her, test her, just to kind of clarify things. I'm going to tell her what I want to do, which was I want to quit my job. And she was super supportive, because in my mind, my mindset was like, hey, guy's number one job is to provide, if you don't provide, a woman in your 30s isn't going to waste your time with you, but she looked at it from the bigger picture, and I was like, oh man, so like you actually want to be with me, even though I'm going to lose this really high paying job, and I don't know where when my next paycheck is going to come from. And so that it took me a while to trust that I don't know where it's going to lead to, but if I follow God and I follow the church's teachings, it's going to lead to a good thing. And obviously it was an excellent choice for me.
Praise God. So so how long did you know her before you got married?
So we had the retreat in February, and then we started officially dating. I'll never forget this because it's April 1st, April's Fool's Day. So it's kind of ironic, April's Fool's Day. And then I proposed in August. It was right before my birthday.
Okay.
So so it was fairly quick,
all within that same year.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like April, May, June, July, August. So 5 months. So
wow.
Now the ironic thing, Charbel, is this ain't my first rodeo. So I was like, slow down, cowboy, slow down. You rushed before and you paid the price. Please don't make the same mistake again. So I mean, I was ready to propose within 2 months, but I was just like, slow down, pray about it. But it's just like, I think everything was like so clear. I mean, it just, that's why I'm a big proponent of theology of the body, because that was actually something that Jessie brought up when I asked her to be my girlfriend. And I'll be honest with you, I've never done it with any other woman before. When she said it, I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's follow the theology of the body. But like, because I had similar intentions before and it fell apart, I thought, well, it's probably not going to work out, but it's a worthy goal, but we actually persisted, and that made the decision very easy, because like once you remove lust off the table, then you realize like, hey, that's at least in my experience, that's the only way you can make a clear decision, like that you love the person for who they are rather than how they make you feel. And so while I would even back then to myself, like 5 months, are you sure you're rushing into it. But with the theology of the body, it just made it simple. I mean, it was just a no-brainer. It was like the easiest decision of my life.
I can't help think, St. John Paul II, who gave us the theology of the body.
Oh yeah, I know, it's funny. I didn't make that connection. Yes, that's true.
It's in the roots there, and you got to meet him, the author of that, the brains behind it all, or God, of course, through him. But amazing. That's been revolutionary. People understanding what that is. So that's beautiful. So you married. Any children? Do you have children together?
No. So that's something, please pray for us. And it's hard because a lot of the times, people were like saying, well, you're trying to do, in vitro, IVF, are you trying to, do these things? And so we just leave it in God's hands. Also, we're very open to adoption. Right now, Jesse's is going through some health issues, but once we sort it out, regardless if you have a biological baby or not, then we definitely want to adopt. It's something that we want to do. But yeah, long story short, we don't have, but it's not because of lack of trying.
Yeah, we'll be praying for that with you. We were blessed to see both of you on the Rosary Pilgrimage, and you both led the Rosary for us in that Rosary Pilgrimage. So we got to see Jessie, and it was nice to hear in multiple languages as well. So it was quite beautiful. I think we did.
Yeah, she's a smart one. She's she's got she's an attorney. She's got a master's. She's I definitely married above my punching level.
Well done. Well, what a blessing. But now you did, you are known for men's ministry. You are very active now, coaching men and giving them guidance and about how to be the best men they can be. And you have a book that you've written. Tell us, I can see it in the corner there, The Love-Driven Man. Tell us about the book. What led you to this?
Sure. So it's really comes down to recognition that we as men, we typically don't have good role models to model to us what good looks like. And, and because of that, we end up doing things out of fear, out of our wounds. And so to me, the whole kind of idea behind the love-driven man, it's kind of, you see it on the on that sign. It's this kind of choice, control or love. So for example, for me, because I was wounded as a child, with my abusive grandfather, I defaulted to control, to not feel that pain again, you know. And so that's why I never like let anybody in, because I didn't want them to hurt me. That's why I really wanted to create this image that people would buy into. You know, for example, one of them doing that was through my military uniform. It's like, hey, he graduated in top 10% of the class at West Point. He's got a Ranger tab. He's got to be good. I was very much focused on that stuff, you know. And so what I'm trying to do is, like, with this book, is helping men identify where they are controlling. I find out where this control come from and help them to let it go, because that will result in a much better love-filled life for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That book, yeah, how is it available? How do people get in touch? How do
Sure.
they get
So sure. So it's available on Amazon. It's on Kindle. Also, I did an Audible version. It's not me,
Oh, wow.
but I got another veteran. He's kind of got that kind of Morgan Freeman voice. So it's available on Audible and also Apple audiobooks. If you prefer to listen to books, you know, it's like one thing I've noticed is that you know, like me, I'm a reader, so I prefer to like read things. But I've noticed from men that some prefer to listen to things, and sometimes, you know, people are busy, so they can listen to it on the drive to work or
Brilliant.
whatnot. So it's available on Audible, Amazon, Kindle, and Apple audiobooks.
Brilliant. Okay. Please do yourself a favor and get a copy and listen and learn, all you men out there, and even all you women, learn about what it is that the man is going through. So would you recommend women read this
Well, yeah, I was actually gonna mention is that there's a good number of women who read it, and it helped them understand why men act the way they do. Because I think it's fair to say that on average, women are more in tune with their emotions, and so, you know, that's like we are guilty of, like, the way we do things. We assume everybody, the other person, should think the same way. And so, like, what this helps is, like, for women to understand, like, why it's hard for two men open up, you know. And if
Yes.
it's hard to open up, like, what are the reasons? Because once you understand, it's a lot easier to be empathetic, and it's a lot easier to have the conversation about the root causes, rather than clash on the on the symptoms.
You have a website, or you have? I know you have a podcast. Tell us how do people get in touch with you and learn more about
Sure.
your
Sure.
work?
So probably the best way to go is go to my website. It's basically my name, marekrudak.com. You know, on there's a link for Calendly if you want to have a quick conversation, even your questions about what I mentioned, or have particular questions about your situation. You know, because another thing that I've also been doing is I've been doing a lot of executive coaching as well. So I get to see these dynamics in corporate level. You know, so I get to coach places like Pinterest, Yelp, these kind of tech companies, and you know, and obviously I don't want to run over, but to me, it's just fascinating how, you know, people at those like high levels, they struggle with the same thing. In fact, you know, like one thing that's very common in you know, in executive coaching, because I do it for a company, it's called the imposter syndrome. You know, and it's
Okay.
actually so common that it's a pull down menu item, and it's like,
What-
you know, when I coach these executives, at the root cause, what it comes down to is that idea of control, in the sense that they didn't get the validation growing up. They didn't get that love from their parents or whatnot. And so they become very hungry for it later on in life. And when they get to that level, it's like, you know, it should be a good thing, but actually, in a way, it's actually worse, because now that they got there, they're afraid of losing it, you know. And so, and it's just sad, because at the root cause of it is just this idea, this unfortunate situation where people don't get love. And it's to me just fascinating how it affects regular people, executives, you know, Christians, Catholics, everyone, you know. And it's just so sad, because it should be so natural, but because of our broken world, it's actually a luxury.
Yeah. Wow. So true. In our final minute together, and I just want to congratulate you on all the work you're doing, and just hearing your journey to this point, and now that you're giving back and you're helping, you know, men today rediscover who they are and their calling. What would be your final sort of take-home message here? And I'll let you take away the final thought. What would be your, yeah, just what's the takeaway for people watching now?
Yeah, sure. So that's a tough one. You know, I got asked to do a talk for Knights of Columbus about how to grow in their spiritual life. You know, and I think that, you know, one of the key things, I think, in my mind, it all starts with prayer. You know, so if you don't have a prayer routine, get one. And if you have a prayer routine, but you don't feel like it's getting you closer to God, think of it as a workout. Sometimes you work out and your muscles get used to it and you need to change things up. So please, if you have a routine and you don't feel like you're growing spiritual, please don't be afraid to change it up and find something that helps you to hear God's voice better, because it all starts with grace. And I believe that the best way to tune into that grace, to be able to be more receptive to it, is through a prayer routine that you feel like it's helping you grow spiritually. It doesn't have to be, the kind of that road to Damascus moments, but like if you look on average, like over the last few months, did this get me closer to God? If yes, keep doing it. If not, well, the beautiful thing about a Catholic faith, we have so many different things. We got rosary, we got the liturgy of the hours. I'm doing that recently. You got these consecrations. I mean, you name it. So just pick one and find the one that sticks with you. And if it doesn't work, don't be hesitate to change it out to help you improve that connection to God.
Powerful. I couldn't have said any better. That's great. I echo that. Prayer is transformative, and find something that actually sticks. And what's beautiful about our Catholic faith, we don't just promote one type of prayer. There's so many ways of praying. It's quite beautiful. It's great to hear you on fire for your faith, Marek, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I hope we can get you on again, and we can really tap into more of your knowledge in this space of male spirituality and the work that you do. We're going to do. I've got a feeling we're going to see a lot more of you in the future. So
thank you. Appreciate it, Jarba. Anytime. My pleasure.
Please pray for us. We're praying for you. God bless you. And again, the website again, it's marekrudak.com.
Yep.
That's correct.
It. Thank you.
So thank you for listening. That's Marek. What a great man of faith. And I encourage you to visit his website, read the book, get a copy of the book, and just get to know more about his work. And look, don't be afraid. If you're someone that is looking for direction or just have answers, why don't you get in touch with him and take advantage of these one-on-ones that he can offer? I think it's going to be very valuable. Thanks again. That's another Parousia Podcast. I'm Shabo Reish, your host. Please visit us at our website, parousiamedia.com. Don't forget to join our Parousia World social media platform. Again, all information is on our website, and we hope to see you there. So thanks again. God bless.